Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing another book review, this time of The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This one has been on its way for a long time. I was so excited to read this book and I finished it in under a week and I'm really excited to talk about it, so let's just get into it. So just to give you a quick plot of this book, it is about a girl named Avery Grams, and she finds out that this billionaire has left her something in his will. He's passed away and she needs to be there when they read it, and she shows up and they read it, and it turns out that he left her everything and she's never even heard of him before, and so she has no idea why, and of course his family is like not so happy about it. So then she has to work with the billionaire's 4 grandsons, which are all brothers, of course. One of the stipulations though, the only way that she's going to be able to get everything is if she lives in the mansion for a full year, and which is kind of scary because his whole family lives there. But this mansion's super cool. It has a bunch of secret passageways, and she ends up working with the billionaire's 4 grandsons, which are all brothers, and they're trying to figure out the puzzle of why he left his whole inheritance to her and how all of this happened. There's a bunch of really cool things with this book. It kind of reminds me of The Naturals, which is another series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and National Treasure with Nicolas Cage in it. Just because of the secret passageways, and specifically the second National Treasure movie, if you've seen that, there's a lot of similarities between these two. The genre for this one, I would say it's kind of like mystery slash romance, which I'll get into. I think you could call it a thriller. I would rather not. I don't find, having read some adult thrillers, especially recently, it's much more of a mystery, I think. Kind of like a scavenger hunt in a way. I'm just going to talk about a couple of the characters really quick. I'm only going to talk about the main girl, her sister, and then the 4 brothers. So the main girl is Avery, and she's the narrator for the whole book. So this isn't really something about Avery, it's more my personal opinion. I didn't really like her, which sucked to not like the narrator because literally the whole book is from her perspective. Obviously, it's first person, so it is in her head as well. Part of the reason I didn't like her is because the way that the book started out was she was very like, I can take care of myself and I'm tough. But then like at parts she would be like complete damsel in distress and need help. And so then I was like, it's one or the other, queen. Like I didn't like the going back and forth between those two things depending on situations. Now, some of the situations that it happened in, that's like, there are good reasons for it, but it still just didn't seem to fit her character. Also, I personally really didn't like the romance in this book, which I will talk more about, but I think that's part of the reason I didn't like her as well. So like I mentioned, there are 4 brothers. One of them's name is Nash. He's the oldest, and he's very like cowboy, older brother, that sort of thing. Like he kind of dresses like a cowboy, in my head at least. Grayson was the second oldest. He was more important than Nash, at least in this book. I also didn't like him very much. He was just too serious. He was like robot 100% of the time, in my opinion. And he was kind of just the most boring, in my opinion. He also has like gray eyes, which like I kind of have gray eyes, but I don't know, something with like the gray eyes. I was like, yeah, of course he's got gray eyes because he's so dull and boring. I don't know. I really didn't like him. No offense if you have gray eyes out there. Gray eyes are supposed to be really rare. So the next brother is Jameson. So then he's the second youngest. He is the same age as Avery, and he's very goofy, but in my opinion, he was like too goofy. I feel like the way it plays out is he's supposed to be kind of Grayson's opposite, but I'm not sure. I just felt like he was really immature, I guess. But he was probably the most dynamic character, especially when you get closer to the end of the novel. There was much more to him than the others, in my opinion. Then the youngest one is Xander. I loved Xander, which is short for Alexander. I loved him. He was my favorite character. He was so cool. I only wish that he'd been in the book longer. I feel like he wasn't in the book very often, especially in the first half. The last character I'm going to talk about is Libby, which is Avery's sister. Libby is her older sister, and when Avery inherits all this stuff and she's going to move into the mansion, which is also in a different state, I think, Libby like moves into the mansion with her. I really liked her style. She was described as like gothic style. Shocking that I would like that. Gothic style, and she has blue hair, like literally everything that I could want. Her personality, in my opinion, was kind of like Izzy from Grey's. So let me know if you noticed that as well. Especially because she's like bakes when she's anxious, which I need someone like that in my life. Something that I really loved about this book was being thrown into the midst of a family while knowing that they all have secrets, and they were all pretty dynamic characters. I find that Jennifer Lynn Barnes always has dynamic characters, especially the Naturals, which is one of my favorite series. I feel like all of the characters were really strong in that one. So being thrown into this big extravagant family, but at the same time still being an outsider, same as Avery's an outsider. So that was kind of interesting in my opinion. It's all my opinion. The other thing I really liked were the passageways and puzzles in this. I really, really enjoyed that. I mean, I grew up watching National Treasure, which is why it made me think of it. So having that was super cool in it. There was also a lot of plot twists. I guessed many of them. It is a very YA novel in my opinion. Like some YA is more like on the adult side. This is probably for like 15-year-olds, I would guess. So there was definitely a lot that I guessed. I feel like if I was younger, I wouldn't have guessed as many and I might have liked it more, but there were definitely some that threw me off. Things that I didn't like were that there were a couple obvious plot twists. They might not have been that obvious, but I stupidly put down the book to take off my makeup, and then I was thinking about it as I was taking off my makeup, and I was like, you know what would be really cool if like this happened at the end, and then it did. And I was like, that would also make sense because it would tie up all these other things, and then that thing happened. And so then I was like kind of disappointed, but that's almost my fault. I shouldn't have put the book down. That was a mistake. I'm gonna get into the biggest one. I hated the romance in this. Now, I am not a romance reader in general, I guess, so I don't really love the romance in books, like, usually. I don't hate it, as long as it's well done. And I love Jennifer Lynn Barnes' writing, but the romance in the Natural series I found much better than this one. This one it made Avery very pick-me, which I think is part of the reason I didn't like her. It would be like, he's looking at me. Is he jealous because his other brother was looking at me? And I was like, no, he's not. He's just some random dude you just met. Like, but that's how, it wasn't just like a one-time thing, and it was immediately after you meet them. It was like a bunch of things like that she was like, is he like thinking about me right now? And I'm like, no, probably not. But obviously he probably is, because it's a YA novel and that's how the story moves because it's from her perspective, so how else would you get that across? Like, I do understand that, but I don't know, it felt very, very pick-me. There was a lot of times that she was like, that's weird, I wonder if he's jealous because I was hanging out with his brother. And I'm like, wah! So I didn't like that part as much. Also, it's, you know how they do screen testing? Janelle would know. They do screen testing for actors to make sure that the actors have good chemistry on screen, especially if they're going to be playing like romantic partners. I feel like the book characters had no chemistry. They needed like a page testing because the chemistry was not there between the characters, which I don't know how that happens because they were all created by the same person at the same time. But I just personally, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder which brother I'll want her to end up with. And then by the end I was like, none of them, I don't like this. The last thing that I didn't love, which isn't really the book's fault, it's more of a recommendation. If you're gonna read this, don't focus on how the puzzles work. There's a lot of puzzles that involve like, you need to push something and then you twist it, and like, it's like those kind of puzzles. And I was trying to picture it in my head, but there's so many things that happen like that throughout the whole novel that my head was like beginning to hurt, and you will never get through the book if you're trying to like picture all of them. There'd be some that I literally just had to give up and be like, so something happened, and kind of just skip past that. But that would make it a really cool movie. I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. I would give the end of it like roughly like a 7 out of 10 in my opinion. Like I said, I kind of guessed the major plot twist, but the main conflict kind of left me wanting more. I don't know. I just still kind of felt like it wasn't really over at the point that I finished it, but it was still good. I was shocked at times, and I really liked specifically the last couple pages. How they were written made me feel like I wanted to just pick up the second one immediately. I rated this book roughly like a 4.5 out of 5. On Goodreads it's listed as a 5. That might seem high given I just berated it a bunch, but I did really enjoy it. I think it's just that I am unfortunately just a little too old for it, which sucks because I think I would have loved this if I'd been a couple years younger. Which, I mean, I still did love it, don't get me wrong, and I love the puzzles, and I'm definitely going to read the rest of the series, obviously. But I do recommend anything by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, especially if you're older. I really liked the Natural series, which I'll say for my whole life. That's gonna be it for the non-spoiler section. In the spoiler section, I just have a couple things that were my opinion that I just want to say that I liked or didn't like. So, and I'm gonna give no context whatsoever, so don't think that you can just like watch the spoiler part without reading it, because go ahead, but you're not gonna understand. So.
Spoilers.
So one of the first things is I really did not trust Libby, Avery's sister, from the very beginning. Literally the first scene that Libby is in, I was like, something's off. I was like, I don't like her. And I was writing notes with the whole thing, and I was like, oh, I trust her. I don't trust her. Oh my gosh, I trust her again. No, I don't trust her. And it just like went back and forth and back and forth. And so then by the end, you're supposed to still trust her. But I literally didn't trust her the whole time. I don't know. I don't know if it's something about the way she was written. I don't know why. And I still don't really trust her. I don't know. In the next couple books, I'm not sure. Something's weird. I'm telling you now. In my opinion, there were too many random parts when so many little details in this book mattered. There were so many little things that didn't matter. For example, like when she goes in through the arcade room and she just stops to play pinball with Nash, and it just didn't feel like there was any point to that. Like I was like, oh, something's gonna happen with the pinball machine, and then it didn't, because her name came up, but her name also came up at the bowling alley, so like maybe it was just supposed to like push that point. I don't know. That in particular I marked as being like, why is this here? Why is this necessary? The spoiler that I called that I was kind of disappointed about was the whole thing with like Harry. Oh, there's a bug attacking Janelle. I was like, don't make noise. You're whispering to the bug. Shh, we're filming. Hey, excuse me. Go away. Yeah, so I called, I don't know how much we're gonna leave that in. I called the Harry spoiler, like the fact that he's Tobias and that Tobias was actually alive, because I thought that it was so random that the book literally started with Harry and then it was just like, gives him a bunch of money, and then that's even mentioned like halfway through it. Like the only thing that I did was give this guy money that I used to play chess with, like whatever. And so then I was like, hey, so they bring it up again, but then they didn't bring it up for so long that I feel like we were supposed to forget about him. I did not. The whole time I kept going back and being like, what was the point of that whole storyline? And then I was really annoyed at first because I thought it was just supposed to be like, she is so selfless and just supposed to be like character development, and I thought that that was a bad way to do that. But then, I mean, it actually had meaning, as we now know. But I did call it. That was when I was taking off my makeup. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if Toby actually was alive? And then, plus, but they kind of spoiled that. I don't know. When they were like, no, he disappeared. I found like that was kind of weird. I don't know. So then when they were like, I thought it'd just be cool if it was like, oh, Toby is actually Harry and he actually like is alive and she knew him this whole time, like blah, blah, blah. So I kind of guessed that one. I didn't guess the whole part about like Xander and knowing everything and being the one to like be like almost orchestrating the whole game. I thought that that was really cool, especially because I really liked him and I felt like he was underdeveloped, so that really added a lot. Plus at the end with the letter that he got, I think that that's really cool, and that's why I'm so excited to read the next one. Plus the whole Xander thing kind of ties in the fact that he would sit and talk with his grandfather when all of the other boys were like trying to figure out the game, I guess. This is really random, but the only part in this book that I actually liked Grayson's character was when he guessed her number when she's trying to pick a number between 1 and 10, and then she picked 2 by trying to sort out, okay, everyone picked 7, and then 1 and 10 are the extremes, and so then, and she was trying to pick a number, and then he ended up guessing it, and they don't really explain how he also came to that conclusion. I just thought that that was really cool. That was like the only time that I felt like his character actually had like some depth to it. So I guess if I had to pick, she should end up with him over Jameson, because I don't like that Jameson kissed her and then was like, this is such a cool game we're playing, right? That was weird. No, that whole thing in the cabin, I hated that. That was awful. The other thing though about Grayson, let's talk about what I didn't like. I had a major ick in this book and I need to talk about it. The part where she's a scar and then he's like, can you show me? And then she like shows it. Why was any of it necessary? It was so strange. I was so uncomfortable reading it. Was it just so that he would have proof so that he could actually get mad at his mom? Because he didn't seem like too shocked when he found that whole part out, but how his mom was like actually trying to kill her. So like maybe that was part of it. I don't know. I didn't feel like that was necessary. Yeah, I didn't like that. In my opinion, I said that Grayson's a little bit too bland to matter, if like romance wise, but Jameson is too immature. That's what I mean when I say I don't like them. And obviously Xander's like a child, so. But I am giving Jameson a little bit of a pass after learning about all of his Emily trauma. That makes sense. So, speaking of Emily, her death, so sad. I had a theory this whole time that she was like either murdered or like something happened there or it was a suicide. I'm not willing to say that it's not that at this point, but I just knew that there must be more to it, and then when they explained it, I was like, that is heartbreaking. And I really, I don't want to say, I really liked her death. I really liked the way that her death came about. There's no good way to say that. I really loved the way she died. I really liked her death just because, hold on, let me finish. I liked it because it was still really sad and traumatizing, but it wasn't like so dramatic that it was hard to believe, you feel me? But I feel like Emily was a more in-depth and interesting character than everyone else in this book combined. So I'm kind of sad she's dead. The last thing that I will say about my thoughts and then also the plot, and I promise the romance, this is the last thing I'm gonna say. In my opinion, it felt like enemies to lovers, but also love at first sight. So it's like, I hate him, but like, why is he getting closer to me? That's kind of what it was, and I just really did not enjoy that at all. My final thought is that everything by Jennifer Lynn Barnes is amazing. I really do love everything about her. Her as a person, I'm just her biggest fan. And yeah, I don't know, I just felt like maybe I was too old for some of the romance parts, but other than that, it was a really good book. It was well-rounded. There's a lot of plot twists throughout, but not too many. Like, it was very well written, and it was a good mystery, especially. So it's more of an easy read though, if you're someone that is older. And I'm obviously gonna finish the series. So that was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Please leave me a comment down below or send me a DM on Instagram at stories_books. And I just made a Twitter account. I've been finding quotes in books for a little while now that I'm like, oh, I really like that. And I wrote it down in like my notes app. And then I was like, I kind of just want to tweet them. I don't know. Janelle got me using Twitter this summer a lot. So, so yeah, I made a Twitter. It's also stories_books. And yeah, I really want to talk about this book with people. And I want to hear your guys' opinions as well. If you can think of anything that's going to make me enjoy the romance more, I beg you, please be like, well, see it from this perspective. And I'll be like, okay, that's a good point. So please, I'm begging you, anything. I think that is all. Thank you guys so much for watching. Go out and get yourself a copy of this book. This is also an ad. Could you imagine? That's when I know I made it. Yeah, I think that is all for today's video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys. The first scene. Remix. Literally.